"Dad, can I share my snack with that girl on the street?" The attitude of Caspian Vance, a billionaire father, would surprise everyone at the luxurious, the savory haven. Elara, a very young girl, could barely stand, her frail body trembling with hunger. Her tiny bare feet were icy, almost stuck to the cold asphalt of Willow Creek. She pressed her face against the gleaming restaurant window, leaving a slight foggy smudge that would soon disappear. Inside, the opulence was so immense that her light blue eyes could barely take it all in. Immaculate tablecloths, gleaming silverware, steaming dishes, and an aroma that made her hungry stomach protest even louder. Near the window, a blonde girl almost the same age as Elara ate slowly while talking to an elegant, impeccably dressed man. Elara watched every forkful, every movement, swallowing hard. How long had it been since she felt the warmth of a meal? The memories refused to come. The girl inside the restaurant had golden hair that danced under the light of the crystal chandeliers. Her blue eyes, like Elara's, shone with something the girl on the street had forgotten: joy, security, a future. "Dad, there's a girl watching us," Aurora said, discreetly pointing to the window. Caspian Vance looked up from his smartphone, a pang of annoyance at the interruption. Saturdays were sacred, the only days he had to spend with Aurora, but work seemed to never cease. He was the magnate behind Willow Creek's largest construction company. Money was not a concern. Time, however, was. "Eat your lasagna, Aurora," he replied, returning to typing. But Aurora couldn't tear her gaze away. There was something about the girl in the window that troubled her. When their eyes met through the glass, Aurora saw something she couldn't name but felt deeply: sadness, hunger, abandonment. Elara hesitated, then waved shyly. Aurora smiled and waved back, a gesture of pure innocence. "Dad, she's hungry." Caspian mumbled something inaudible without even taking his eyes off the screen. The restaurant buzzed with life on that sunny Saturday. Affluent families enjoyed their lunches, laughter and celebrations filled the air. Waiters rushed from table to table, the clinking of silver cutlery mixing with animated conversations. Aurora continued to observe Elara. She was too thin. Her clothes, once white, were now gray and torn. But it was Elara's bare feet that most caught Aurora's attention. How can someone walk on the street without shoes? "Dad, can I share my food with that little girl?" Aurora's question made Caspian lift his head abruptly. He looked to where his daughter was pointing and saw the child pressed against the window. Other customers began to notice, whispering among themselves, some with clear signs of disapproval. "Aurora, darling, she can't come in here," Caspian said, picking up his phone again. "This is a restaurant." "But she's hungry," Aurora insisted with her childish stubbornness. "Look how she devours the food with her eyes." Caspian sighed. It was his day off. He didn't want complications, arguments, or embarrassing scenes. He just wanted a quiet lunch with his daughter and then to go home. "Mommy always said sharing is good," Aurora continued. The words of Elena Vance, his late wife, echoed in Caspian's mind. Elena had died 2 years prior in a tragic car accident. Since then, he and Aurora had been trying to rebuild their lives. On Saturdays, they always went out for lunch. It was a tradition Elena loved. There was something in Aurora's voice that Caspian recognized, the same determination Elena had when she wanted to help someone, the same blue eyes full of compassion. Caspian looked at Elara again. She was still there, motionless, like a fragile statue, her eyes never leaving Aurora's plate. "Please," Aurora repeated. Caspian put his phone in his pocket and gestured to the waiter, who approached quickly. "That little girl outside," Caspian hesitated. "My daughter would like her to lunch with us." The waiter looked at the window, then at the manager, who was behind the counter. The manager looked visibly unhappy but nodded reluctantly. "Of course, Mr. Vance, I'll get her." The waiter exited through a side door and returned a few minutes later, accompanied by the girl. Up close, Elara looked even smaller and more vulnerable. Her blonde hair was disheveled and dirty. Her clothes, torn in places, exuded a smell that Caspian noticed first, a mixture of dirt and fear. Elara stopped at the entrance of the restaurant, her eyes wide as she scanned the luxurious environment. She had never been in a place like that. Elegant people, shining chandeliers, the intoxicating smell of food. Everything seemed like a dream.
"Everyone is looking at me," she whispered to the waiter, stepping back. Indeed, several people watched with curiosity, and some with clear disapproval. An elderly lady murmured something to her husband, shaking her head negatively. "You can sit with us," Aurora quickly said, getting up from her chair and waving. "I'll order food for you." Caspian noticed the murmurs around them and decided to act. "Come," he said, standing up and pulling out a chair. His voice was firm and loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. "You are our guest." The whispers subsided. Elara approached slowly, like a frightened animal. She sat on the edge of the chair, ready to flee at any moment. "And what's your name?" Aurora asked, animated. "Elara," she whispered, without lifting her eyes from the floor. "My name is Aurora, and this is my father, Caspian." Elara nodded shyly. Caspian waved to the waiter. "Could you please bring another plate of lasagna and an orange juice?" "For me?" Elara asked, finally looking up. Her eyes had the same blue light as Aurora's, but there was a sadness in them that broke Caspian's heart. "For you," Caspian confirmed. When the food arrived, Elara looked at the plate as if it were made of gold. She picked up the fork with reverence and tasted a small piece. Her eyes widened with pleasure, and then she began to eat. Too fast, swallowing large pieces without chewing properly, as if at any moment someone could take her plate away. Her hands instinctively protected the food. "Wow, you're really hungry," Aurora observed, impressed. "You can take all the time you need," Caspian said softly. "No one will take your food. If you want more, just ask." Elara stopped eating and looked at him, with suspicion mixed with hope. "Really? Truly?" She resumed eating, but a little more slowly. Caspian watched in silence, trying to guess when the girl had had her last decent meal. By the looks of it, it had been days. "Do you live around here?" Aurora asked, always curious. Elara stopped chewing and looked at her plate. "I don't live anywhere." "What do you mean, Aurora?" Caspian interrupted gently. Let her eat in peace. But Aurora remained fascinated by her new acquaintance. "Want to see my drawing?" she asked, picking up a napkin scribbled with colored pencils. "It's our house." Elara looked at the drawing with genuine interest. 2 stick figures in front of a square with a triangle for a roof. "It's pretty," she said softly. "We have a big yard and a pool," Aurora continued. "And my room is pink with unicorns." Elara smiled for the first time, a shy but genuine smile since she had entered. "How about dessert?" Caspian asked. "They have ice cream here." Elara's eyes sparkled. "Ice cream?" 2 chocolate ice creams," Aurora requested animatedly. When the ice cream arrived, the 2 girls ate together, talking softly. Aurora spoke about her school, her favorite cartoons, her dolls. Elara just listened, asking occasional questions. Caspian watched the scene with a strange feeling in his chest. He hadn't seen Aurora so animated and talkative in a long time. Since Elena's death, the girl had become quieter, more reserved. But there, talking with Elara, she was the joyful child she used to be again. "Do you have dolls?" Aurora asked. Elara shook her head negatively, with no apparent sadness. It was as if she had never expected to have toys. "I have so many. When you come to my house, you can play with them." Caspian felt a pang of sadness. Aurora was making plans, creating expectations. But what were the chances they would see Elara again? After almost 2 hours, Caspian looked at his watch. The restaurant was starting to empty. "We have to go, Aurora." "Already?" Aurora pouted. "But I was talking to Elara." "It's getting late." Aurora turned to Elara with genuine sadness. "It was so good to meet you." "Me too," Elara said, her voice choked with emotion. "Thank you so much for the food." The two girls stood up. For an instant, they stood face to face, unsure how to say goodbye. "Bye," Elara said, giving her a spontaneous hug. Elara returned the hug, squeezing Aurora as if she wanted to keep that moment forever. "Bye, Elara," she said. She turned to Caspian, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Thank you, sir. It was the best lunch of my life." The simple phrase hit Caspian like a punch to the stomach. The best lunch of my life. An ordinary meal for him had been the highlight of a child's life. "It was a pleasure to meet you, Elara." She smiled one last time, waved to them both, and headed for the door.
Before leaving, she looked over her shoulder one last time, as if she wanted to memorize that place, those people who had been kind to her. And then she was gone, disappearing into the street's hustle and bustle. Aurora remained pressed against the window for several minutes, searching for Elara on the busy sidewalk. "Will we see her again, Daddy?" Caspian didn't know what to answer. Street children appeared and disappeared every day in Willow Creek. The chances were minimal. "I don't know, darling." "She seems so lonely," Aurora said, still looking at the street. On the way back home, Aurora was quiet for a while. Caspian thought she had forgotten the encounter, but then she spoke. "Daddy, does she have a home?" "I don't know, Aurora." "Does she have anyone?" Caspian hesitated. How to explain abandonment and loneliness to a 5-year-old? "I don't know that either. She seems so solitary." Aurora paused thoughtfully. "Just like I was when Mommy left." Her daughter's words struck Caspian like lightning. Aurora had never verbalized her feelings about her mother's death so directly, and now she was comparing her own loneliness to that of a street girl. "Did you feel lonely when Mommy died?" he asked softly. "Sometimes, especially at night. Even with you, Daddy, I felt lonely." Caspian felt something stir in his chest, a mix of guilt, sadness, and something else he couldn't identify. He had focused so much on work, on maintaining financial stability, that he might not have noticed his own daughter's loneliness. "And Elara doesn't even have a dad or a mom," Aurora continued. "I thought that must be much worse. It must be. She said it was the best lunch of her life. Daddy, she really said it. That's so sad, isn't it?" Caspian looked at his daughter in the rearview mirror. Her blue eyes were filled with an understanding that seemed too mature for a 5-year-old. "Yes, it is very sad. I wish she had a family like ours." Caspian felt something powerful move within him. He didn't know exactly what it was, but it was strong. It was as if something had awakened during that lunch, something that had been dormant since Elena's death. "Maybe she does, darling. We don't know her whole story." "But if she doesn't," Aurora paused, "we could help, couldn't we, Daddy?" "How?" "I don't know, but we could." Caspian didn't answer, but Aurora's words echoed in his mind all the way home. When they arrived, Aurora ran to her play space. Caspian stood in the living room, looking out the window. The house was too quiet. It always was on weekends. It was a large mansion with impeccable gardens, a swimming pool, everything money could buy. But it was empty. It lacked life, laughter, human warmth. Since Elena's death, Caspian had closed himself off. He became demotivated, worked too much, went out little, and lived only for Aurora and his business. He had built a safe and predictable routine, without surprises or strong emotions. But that lunch had broken something in that routine. The image of Elara pressed against the window, her hungry eyes, her shy smile when she ate the ice cream, and especially her last words, "It was the best lunch of my life." Caspian wondered where Elara would sleep that night, if she was cold, if she was scared, if there was anyone in the world who cared about her. And he wondered what kind of man he had become, to be able to dine in a luxurious house while a child the age of his daughter slept on the street. Something strong stirred within him. He didn't know what, but it was impossible to ignore. It was as if a seed had been planted during that lunch, a seed that was beginning to sprout. though he still didn't know what kind of tree would grow from it. In her room, Aurora was playing with her dolls, but her words reached the living room. "Your name is Elara, right? And you don't have a home, so you can live here with me." Caspian closed his eyes and felt that something fundamental had changed. The lunch really had changed everything. He just didn't know how yet. Caspian woke up on Sunday thinking about Elara. He had dreamed of those tired blue eyes all night. In the kitchen, as he prepared breakfast, he couldn't get out of his head the phrase she had said without thinking. "It was the best lunch of my life." Aurora came downstairs still in her pajamas, her blonde hair disheveled. "Good morning, Daddy." "Good morning, darling. Do you want pancakes?" "Yes, Daddy." "Do you think Elara slept well last night?" The question caught Caspian by surprise. He stopped stirring the batter and looked at his daughter. "Why are you thinking about that?" "I thought about it all night. Where did she sleep? Was she cold? Did anyone take care of her?" Caspian served the pancakes, but Aurora barely touched her food. "She says she doesn't live anywhere, remember?" "I remember. So where does she sleep?" Caspian sighed. How could he explain to a 5-year-old that there were children sleeping on the streets in different places? "Aurora, what kind of places?" "I don't know exactly." Aurora was silent for a moment, pushing the pancake around her plate. "Daddy, can we go look for her?" "Look for her where, sweetie?" "At the restaurant. Maybe she'll go back there." Caspian hesitated. Part of him also wanted to know if Elara was okay, but another part of him feared getting more involved than he already was. "Please, Daddy, just to see if she's okay." Aurora's blue eyes were filled with genuine concern. It was the same expression Elena made when she was worried about someone. "All right, let's take a look around there." Aurora's face lit up. "Really? Really, really?" "But only to see if she's okay. Agreed?" "Okay." An hour later, they were in the car on their way to downtown Willow Creek. Aurora looked eagerly out the window, searching for a little blonde girl on every corner. "There!" she suddenly shouted. "Is that her?" Caspian looked where Aurora was pointing. It was a child, but she had dark hair and was older. "That's not her, sweetie." "And there!" Aurora pointed in another direction. It wasn't her either. When they arrived at the restaurant, Caspian parked across the street and they watched. It was Sunday morning, so the establishment was closed. The street was quieter than the day before. "She's not here," Aurora said, disappointed. "Let's walk around the area," Caspian suggested. They got out of the car and started walking. Downtown was different on weekends. Less traffic, more visible homeless people on street corners and in parks. "Daddy, look at those people," Aurora said, pointing to a group of adults sitting under an awning. "I see them. Are they homeless too?" "It looks like it." "Why are there homeless people?" Caspian didn't know how to answer. How to explain social inequality, poverty, and abandonment to a child. "It's complicated, Aurora. Sometimes things get difficult for some people." They walked for 2 more blocks without finding Elara, and Caspian began to think they wouldn't find her. The city was big, and a child alone could be lost anywhere. "Let's look there," Aurora pointed to a side alley. "No, Aurora, let's go back to the car." "But what if she's in there? An alley isn't a safe place." "Please, just a quick look." Caspian hesitated. The alley didn't look dangerous. It was in broad daylight, and Aurora would only be at ease if they were sure. "All right, but stay right by my side." They entered the alley slowly. There were some dumpsters and cardboard boxes scattered around. The smell was not pleasant. Caspian was about to suggest they go back when he heard a noise. Someone was rummaging in one of the dumpsters. "Daddy, there's someone there," Aurora whispered. Caspian saw a small figure hunched over the trash, looking for something. Messy blonde hair, the same dirty clothes from the day before. "Elara," Aurora called. The girl turned, startled, ready to run. When she saw Caspian and Aurora, she stopped, but remained tense. "Hi, Elara," Aurora said, running towards her. "Aurora, slow down," Caspian warned. Elara looked at them with suspicion. Her hands were dirty from the trash, and she smelled bad. She had found a piece of old bread that she held like a treasure. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "We came to look for you," Aurora answered excitedly. "I was worried about you." "Worried about me?" "Yes, I wanted to know if you slept well, if you weren't cold." Elara looked at Aurora as if she were from another planet. No one had ever worried about her before. Caspian slowly approached to be at Elara's height. Up close, he could see that she was even dirtier than the day before. Her eyes were tired, as if she hadn't slept well. "Did you spend the night here?" he asked gently. Elara shook her head. "No." "Where did you sleep?" "In the park, under a bench." Caspian felt his heart ache. A 5-year-old child had slept outdoors, alone in a city park. "Were you cold?" "A little, but I covered myself with a newspaper." "Elara," Caspian said, his voice soft but firm. "Do you want to come with us today?" Elara took a step back, suspicious. "Where?" "To our house," Aurora replied quickly. "You can take a bath, eat warm food, and play with my dolls." "Why would you do that?" The question was simple, but loaded with distrust. Elara had learned early on that when adults offered something, they usually wanted something in return. "Because you need help," Caspian answered honestly. "And because my daughter was worried about you all night." "I really was worried," Aurora confirmed. "I kept thinking if you were okay, if you were scared." Elara looked from Caspian to Aurora, processing the information. Someone was worried about her. Someone had come looking for her. "You're not going to do anything bad to me." "Of course not," said Aurora. "We just want to help." Caspian extended his hand to Elara. "You can trust us. We just want you to be safe and well-fed today." Elara looked at the outstretched hand, then at the piece of stale bread she was holding. Then she looked into Caspian's eyes. There was something in them that she recognized. Genuine kindness. "Okay," she said softly. Aurora shrieked with joy. "Yay! You're going to love our house." In the car, Elara sat in the back seat next to Aurora, but pressed against the door, still ready to flee if necessary. Aurora chattered incessantly, pointing out the neighborhood through the window, talking about school, about her friends. "Our house is big. It has a blue pool and a flowery garden, and my room has a bed that looks like a princess's." Elara listened in silent admiration. She had never been in a big house. When they arrived in the residential neighborhood, her eyes widened. The houses were enormous, with immaculate lawns and luxury cars in the garages. "This is it!" Aurora pointed to a white mansion with impeccably manicured gardens. Upon entering the house, Elara stood still in the entrance hall, dumbfounded. The place was larger than any room Elara had ever slept in. There were curved staircases, gleaming chandeliers, paintings on the walls. "Elara, are you okay?" "It's so big," Elara whispered. "Want to see my room?" "First, she needs a bath," Caspian gently interrupted, "and then we can find some clean clothes for her." Aurora led Elara to the upstairs bathroom. It was larger than any room Elara had ever slept in. The bathtub was white and shiny, with golden faucets. "Do you know how to bathe by yourself?" Aurora asked. "I do," Elara replied, still impressed by the luxury around her. "I'll ask Dad to bring clean towels and shampoo. It might take a while, okay, to get all the dirt off." While Elara was bathing, Caspian looked for clothes that might fit. Aurora had some smaller items that could work. He also prepared a snack: sandwiches, fruit, milk. 40 minutes later, Elara came downstairs unrecognizable. Her blonde hair shone with cleanliness. Her pink skin smelled fresh. She was wearing one of Aurora's pink t-shirts, which was a little big but fit well. "Wow, you look beautiful," Aurora exclaimed, "like a princess." Elara smiled shyly. It had been so long since she felt so clean that she had forgotten how good it was. "You must be hungry," Caspian said. "I prepared a snack." In the kitchen, Elara ate slowly, savoring each bite. This time she did not eat with the same desperation she had shown at the restaurant. Caspian had said she could eat as much as she wanted, so she allowed herself to relax. "Elara," Aurora said, sitting beside her, Where did you live before? Elara stopped chewing and looked at her sandwich. With my grandmother. And where is she now? She passed away. The words hung heavy in the air. Aurora was silent for a moment. My mom died when I was a baby. I never knew my dad. Caspian, who was washing dishes at the sink, stopped to listen. Elara's story was slowly unfolding. So you lived alone with your grandmother? Yes. We had a small house, but it was ours. She took care of me, told me stories, made food. Elara's voice became nostalgic. Was it a good little house? Aurora asked. It was. It wasn't big or beautiful like this one, but it was ours. I had my own bed and some stuffed animals my grandmother made for me. And what happened? My grandmother got sick, very sick. She had to go to the hospital. I stayed home alone, waiting for her to come back, but she never did. Caspian turned to look at Elara. She told the story with an unsettling naturalness, as if it were normal for a 5-year-old to go through this. And after my grandmother died, I was alone at home. I didn't know what to do. There was no food, no money. I didn't know anyone. And now? Aurora asked, engrossed in the story. Some people came to the house. They said I couldn't stay there alone, that the house wasn't mine anymore. I had to leave. But where was I supposed to go? I didn't know. So I started walking. I left home and started walking through the city. I slept under a bridge the first night. I was very scared. Caspian closed his eyes, imagining a small child alone under a bridge. Then I found some cardboard boxes behind a store. I made a small house with them. I slept there when it wasn't raining. And when it rained, I got wet or tried to find some covered place. Once, I slept inside an old abandoned bus. And food, how do you get food? Sometimes I found it in trash cans, pieces of bread, fruits that weren't too spoiled. Once, a lady gave me a cookie. Weren't you scared? I was. I was very scared, especially at night. I closed my eyes and pretended I was in my little bed with my grandmother telling me a story. Elara stopped talking and took a sip of milk. One night, it was very cold. Very, very cold. I was inside a box, but the wind came through everywhere. I thought I was going to freeze to death. Wow, Aurora whispered. I shivered all over, crying through the night. I thought, I'm going to die here alone, just like my grandmother. But when the sun rose, I was still alive. And then I thought, if I survive this night, I can survive others. Caspian approached and sat at the table, his heart heavy with every word Elara spoke. How long have you been living like this? I'm not sure. A few months. I lost track of the days. And yesterday, when we found you at the restaurant, I was so hungry. It had been 2 days since I found anything but a few crumbs. I saw you eating, and I thought about how good it would be to eat warm food again. So, is it really better? Aurora asked. Elara smiled for the first time during the whole conversation. Much better. Thank you for helping me. Caspian looked at Elara, clean, fed, safe in his house, and felt a deep emotion course through his chest. That child didn't need luxury. She didn't need mansions or expensive cars. She needed something much simpler and much more important. She needed people. People who would care if she was cold, hungry, or scared. She needed someone to tell her stories before bed, to worry when she didn't show up, to be happy when she smiled. She needed a family. Elara, he said softly, would you like to stay here tonight to sleep in a real bed and have breakfast tomorrow? Elara looked at him with hope mixed with suspicion. Like, I really could? Are you sure you can? Aurora answered before Caspian could. You can sleep in my room. I have an extra bed. Are you sure? Elara asked Caspian. I'm sure. And at that moment, Caspian knew that something had changed forever. This was not just a night of charity. It was the beginning of something bigger, something he couldn't yet name, but that he felt growing in his chest. The girl didn't need luxury. She needed people. And maybe, just maybe, they needed her too. On Elara's first morning at the Vance's house, Caspian woke up to a sound he hadn't heard in a long time. Children's laughter. Not just one, but 2 voices mingled in pure, joyful laughter. He went downstairs and found Aurora and Elara in the living room, sitting on the floor, surrounded by dolls, building blocks, and colored pencils scattered everywhere. It was a colorful and noisy chaos, the exact opposite of the organized silence that had dominated the house for the past 2 years. "Good morning, girls," said Caspian, stopping at the living room door. "Good morning, Daddy," Aurora shouted without lifting her eyes from the toys. "Elara has never played with real dolls before." "Is that true?" Caspian asked, approaching. Elara nodded, a little embarrassed, but her eyes sparkled. "My grandmother used to make cloth dolls for me, but I never had dolls like these," she said, holding a blonde doll in a blue dress. "She's very beautiful. You can keep her," Aurora said generously. "I have several." "Really? Truly? You're my friend now, so you can have all the toys you want." Caspian watched the interaction with a smile. Aurora had found a companion, and Elara had found someone who treated her as an equal. It was magical to see. "How about breakfast?" he suggested. The two ran to the kitchen, still talking animatedly. During breakfast, Caspian noticed how much Elara had changed in just one night. Her blonde hair shone with cleanliness, her rosy skin looked healthy, and most importantly, there was a sparkle in her blue eyes. "Elara, do you like pancakes?" Aurora asked. "I've never eaten them," Elara admitted. "Never?" Aurora's eyes widened. "Daddy, make pancakes for Elara." "Of course," Caspian smiled, "with chocolate syrup." "What is chocolate syrup?" Elara almost fell out of her chair. "You've never tried chocolate syrup? Wow, you've missed so many good things in life." When Caspian served the pancakes with syrup, Elara tasted them slowly, carefully. Her eyes widened with pleasure. "This is so delicious," she said, smiling. "I told you!" Aurora clapped her hands. "You can have pancakes every Sunday, just like me." Aurora's casual way of saying the phrase created a moment of silence. Every Sunday implied a future, a permanence. Elara looked at Caspian with a silent question in her eyes. "Eat slowly," Caspian said gently, not directly answering the implicit question. "We have all day." After breakfast, the girls returned to the living room. Caspian tried to work in his office, but the sound of laughter and chatter constantly distracted him. Not in an annoying way. On the contrary, it was as if the house had awakened from a deep sleep. "Let's play family," Caspian heard Aurora say. "How do you play that?" "It's easy. You're the older sister, I'm the younger, and my big doll is Mommy." "And Daddy?" "Daddy's at work," Aurora replied automatically. That's how it was in real life, so it was in the game. Caspian felt a pang of guilt. How many times had Aurora played alone while he worked? How many conversations had he missed by being focused on business? "Only in our family, you each have your own room," Aurora continued, "with a princess bed and everything." "Really? Truly? And you'll go to school with me and we'll play together every day." Caspian stopped typing. Aurora was building a future for Elara without even realizing it. In her mind, Elara was already part of the family. "And we'll never be alone again," Aurora added quietly, "because now there are two of us." The phrase hit Caspian like a punch to the gut. Aurora had felt alone all these years, even with him around. She needed companionship, someone her age to share secrets, games, and dreams with. He left the office and found the two girls creating an elaborate block city in the middle of the living room. Aurora was explaining where the school, the park, and the ice cream shop would be. Elara listened intently, fascinated, added her own ideas. "This will be our house," Aurora said, pointing to a set of blocks. "It's big enough for the whole family." "Can I make a garden?" asked Elara. "My grandmother always dreamed of having a big garden." "Of course, we'll make it the most beautiful garden in the world." Caspian sat in the armchair watching. The two worked together naturally, as if they had been sisters for years. Elara had lost her initial shyness and now laughed openly, made suggestions, invented stories for the small figures inhabiting the block city. "And here," Aurora said, placing two small figures side by side, "are the two sisters who are never apart." "Sisters?" Elara repeated, the word carefully. "Yes. Do you want to be my sister?" Elara looked at Aurora, her eyes shining. "I always wanted a sister." "Well, now you have one." The two hugged spontaneously. Caspian felt his eyes well up with tears. It was impossible not to be moved by the purity of that moment. In the afternoon, as sunlight streamed through the large living room windows, the girls got paper and colored pencils. They sat on the floor on either side of a low table and began to draw. "What are you going to draw?" Caspian asked. "It's a surprise," Aurora replied, covering the paper with her hands. "You can't look," Elara added, imitating Aurora. They drew in concentrated silence for almost an hour. Occasionally, they whispered to each other, planning details, choosing colors. Caspian pretended to read a book, but in reality, he was watching the two working together. Elara quickly learned the codes of friendship with Aurora. She shared pencils without being asked, waited her turn, and gave her opinion when questioned. It was as if she had a natural instinct for getting along with others, developed over years of fending for herself. "Done," Aurora finally announced. "Can we show you?" Elara asked. "You can," Caspian said, approaching. The two turned the paper towards him. It was a simple drawing, made with childish strokes, but it conveyed a powerful message. Two stick figures, one with yellow hair, Aurora, and another with slightly shorter hair, Elara, held hands in the center of the paper. Around them, colorful flowers, a smiling sun, and fluffy clouds. At the bottom, in crooked but careful letters, was written, "Best friends forever." "It's beautiful," said Caspian, genuinely moved. "Elara wrote it," Aurora said proudly. "She writes very well." "Grandma taught me," Elara explained. "She said that knowing how to write was important." "Can I put it on the fridge?" Aurora asked. "Of course," Caspian replied. The three went to the kitchen. Aurora placed the drawing on the fridge with a heart-shaped magnet. The two girls stepped back, admiring their work, satisfied with the result. "Now everyone who comes here will know we're best friends," Aurora said. "Forever," Elara finished. Caspian looked at the drawing on the refrigerator. It was simple, childish, made with cheap colored pencils, but it said everything. It spoke of friendship, belonging, hope. It spoke of two girls who found in each other exactly what they needed. He felt his eyes well up with tears. Not tears of sadness, but of a deep and inexplicable emotion. It was as if something inside him had healed just by seeing that drawing. "Daddy, are you crying?" Aurora asked, worried. "No," Caspian lied, wiping his eyes. "It's just allergies." "Allergies don't make you cry," Elara said, watching him closely. "Sometimes they do," Caspian improvised. The girls looked at each other, clearly not believing him, but didn't press the issue. In the late afternoon, as the two played in the garden, Caspian watched from the kitchen window. Aurora was showing Elara how the swing works, how to jump rope, how to plant seeds in the flower bed. Elara absorbed everything with fascination. For her, that garden was an amusement park. The pool, even empty, was a wonder. The large house with its spacious and comfortable rooms, a true palace. But what impressed Caspian most was observing the interaction between the two. Aurora had found someone who admired her, who laughed at her jokes, who wanted to do everything she did. Elara had found someone who accepted her completely, who shared everything willingly, who treated her as an equal. "Elara, can you swim?" Aurora asked, pointing to the pool. "No, I've never been in a pool." "I'll teach you in the summer," Aurora promised. "It's so much fun." Again, the promise of a future. Aurora was already planning the summer with Elara as if it were obvious she would be there. Caspian realized he had stopped questioning, "Now what?" or "What are we going to do with her?" Without even realizing it, he had begun to accept Elara's presence as natural, as if she had always been part of the family. When it got dark, the girls came in for dinner. Caspian had made pasta. Nothing too elaborate, but enough. Elara ate slowly, savoring each mouthful. "I still haven't gotten used to the idea that there will always be enough food." "Elara, do you like stories?" Aurora asked. "Yes, I do. My grandmother used to tell me stories before bed." "What kind of stories?" "About princesses, talking animals, magical places. She invented stories just for me." Elara's eyes lit up with the memory. "Daddy tells stories too," Aurora said. "Right, Daddy?" Caspian stopped eating. It had been a long time since he had told Aurora stories. Since Elena's death, he had lost his talent for such things. "Sometimes," he said vaguely. "You can tell a story to both of us tonight," Aurora suggested, excited. "Can you?" Elara asked, hopeful. Caspian looked at the two pairs of blue eyes fixed on him, full of expectation. How could he say no? "Of course," he heard himself say. After dinner, the three went up to Aurora's room. Caspian had prepared an extra bed for Elara, but the two insisted on sleeping in the same bed like true sisters. Caspian sat in the chair beside the bed and looked at the two girls under the covers, waiting for the story. For an instant, he didn't know what to say. Then the words began to flow naturally. Once upon a time, two princesses lived in distant kingdoms. One had hair as golden as the sun, and the other also had golden hair, but it shone like the stars. The girls listened intently, asking occasional questions, laughing at the funny parts. Caspian was surprised by his own ability to invent, to create a magical world where two princesses became best friends and had incredible adventures together. When he finished the story, Aurora and Elara were almost asleep. "That was the best story I've ever heard," Elara whispered. "Will you tell another one tomorrow?" Aurora asked. "Tomorrow," Caspian promised. He kissed both girls' foreheads and turned off the light. In the hallway, he stood for a moment, listening to the voices coming from the room. "Aurora," Elara whispered, "what is it?" "Thank you for being my friend. Thank you for being my sister forever." Forever. Caspian went downstairs with a heart heavy with emotion. The house was different, not just because there was another child in it, but because a new life circulated through the rooms. For the past 2 years, since Elena's death, the house had become a silent refuge. He and Aurora lived there, but they didn't truly inhabit it. It was a place to sleep, eat, exist, but not to live. Now with Elara, everything had changed. There were toys scattered through the rooms, laughter echoing through the walls, a vibrant atmosphere, conversations during meals. The house was breathing again. Caspian went to the kitchen to get a glass of water, and his eyes fixed on the drawing taped to the refrigerator. Best friends forever. Two simple figures holding hands, surrounded by flowers and smiles. It was just a child's drawing, colored pencils on paper. Nothing sophisticated or artistically valuable. But for Caspian, at that moment, it was the most beautiful thing he had seen in years. It spoke volumes about hope, about new beginnings, about how love can emerge in the most unexpected places. It told the story of two girls who found in each other exactly what they needed to be happy. And perhaps, just perhaps, it told the story of a man who was relearning how to be a father, to open his heart to the unexpected, to let life back into his home once more. Caspian smiled, his eyes filled with tears. It was simple, but it said everything. Upstairs, the two girls slept, wrapped in blankets, in each other's arms, dreaming of princess adventures and magical gardens. And for the first time in a long time, Caspian Vance's house didn't just shelter people, it sheltered a family. A family that had been born in the most improbable way possible, but that now felt as natural as breathing. The house was breathing, and so was Caspian. It was Monday morning, and Caspian should have been at the office 2 hours ago. His phone rang 15 times. Calls from his secretary, his partners, important clients, but he didn't answer. For the first time in years, work could wait. In the living room, Aurora and Elara were sitting on the floor surrounded by colorful building blocks. They had started building what looked like a castle, but it seemed more like a mountain of haphazardly stacked pieces. "This isn't working," Aurora complained, watching her tower collapse for the 3rd time. "Maybe it needs a stronger base," Elara suggested, trying to help. Caspian watched from the armchair, torn between the desire to help and the habit of merely observing. It had always been this way. He provided everything, bought toys, paid nannies, but rarely sat on the floor to truly play. Daddy, Aurora called, frustrated by yet another collapsed tower. Do you know how to build a castle? Yes, Caspian replied automatically. Then come help. He hesitated. He was in a suit, ready to leave for work. The floor was covered with scattered blocks. It wasn't exactly the ideal environment for a serious businessman. Come on, Daddy, Aurora insisted. We can't do this alone. Elara looked at him expectantly. Her blue eyes held the expression of someone who didn't want to ask for anything, but hoped for a lot. Please, Aurora made that face that always worked. Caspian looked at his watch. Another lost meeting. Another contract that would have to be postponed. But when he looked at the two girls on the floor, surrounded by colorful blocks, something inside him gave way. All right, he said, taking off his jacket and loosening his tie. Yay, Aurora cheered. Caspian knelt on the floor and then sat down completely. The rug was soft and warmed by the sun streaming through the window. When was the last time he sat on the floor? First, we need to make a solid base, he said, starting to arrange the larger blocks in that way. Wow, you really know how to do it, Elara said, impressed. Caspian smiled. It had been a long time since anyone was impressed by something he did at work. Everything was expected, professional, serious. Here, building a block castle, he could be surprising. All right, now we can start building the walls, he instructed. One row at a time, the three pairs of hands worked together, choosing colors, fitting pieces, discussing where each tower should go. Caspian found himself genuinely focused on the construction, completely forgetting about the problems at the office. This can be the princess's room, Aurora said, pointing to one of the towers. And here's the garden, Elara added, creating a green space with blocks of that color. It needs a bridge, Caspian observed, to connect the two towers. Good idea, they both said in unison. He began to build an elaborate bridge constructed with engineering techniques he had learned in college decades ago. The girls watched him fascinated as he created arches and supports with the simple blocks. How do you know how to do that? Elara asked. I studied to build big things, buildings or houses, real bridges. Do you build real houses? Elara's eyes widened. That's so cool. You could build a house for me. Elara's words hung in the air. Caspian paused his building for an instant. A house for her, a place of her own, a permanent refuge. Perhaps one day, he said softly. They continued building in comfortable silence. Caspian realized how relaxing it was. There was no pressure, deadlines, or important decisions. Just three people creating something together, with no other goal than to have fun. Finished, Aurora announced when they completed the main structure. Now it needs people living in it. She ran to get small figurines and began distributing them throughout the castle. Caspian watched as she created a complete story for each character, giving them names, personalities, relationships. This is the king, she said, placing a figurine in the main tower. He is very kind and takes good care of the kingdom. And this is the queen, Elara added, choosing a blonde figurine. She helps the king make important decisions. Caspian noticed that Elara had chosen figures that seemed to form a traditional family. Father, mother, children, everything she had always wanted. And these are the princesses, Aurora continued, placing two smaller figurines. They are sisters and best friends. Real sisters? Elara asked. Really real? One was born into the family, the other was adopted, but now they are sisters forever. Caspian felt his chest tighten. Aurora was unconsciously creating the story she wanted to live. What do the princesses do? He asked, joining the game. They have adventures, Aurora replied excitedly. They save animals, help the people of the kingdom discover treasures, and study hard to be smart, Elara added. And they never feel alone because they always have each other, Aurora completed. Caspian picked up the king's figurine and spoke in a deep, solemn voice. "My dear princesses, you are the kingdom's most precious treasure." The girls laughed loudly. "Do it again, Daddy," Aurora pleaded. "Do different voices." Caspian picked up the queen's figurine and switched to a higher pitch. "Princesses, shall we have tea in the garden?" "Let's," replied the princess figurines, with Caspian imitating the childlike voices. For almost an hour, the three created elaborate dialogues between the characters. Caspian was surprised by his own creativity, inventing adventures, conflicts, and solutions. The girls laughed at his imitations and suggested new directions for the stories. During one of the adventures, Elara was moving her princess when her hand brushed Caspian's. Instinctively, she pulled away as she always did when accidentally touching an adult. But Caspian did not move his hand. It remained there in silence, letting her decide what to do. Elara looked at him, surprised. Then, slowly, she placed her small hand on top of his. Caspian gently closed his fingers around the small, warm hand. It was a simple, innocent touch, yet loaded with meaning. It was trust. It was acceptance. It was the beginning of a bond he couldn't yet name. "Your hands are big," Elara said softly. "And yours are small," Caspia replied, smiling. "My grandmother used to say that big hands are for protecting little hands. Your grandmother was a wise woman." Aurora watched the scene and, without a word, placed her hand on top of both of theirs. The three remained like that for an instant, connected by a simple yet profound touch. "Now we are a real family," Aurora said naturally. Caspian felt a stir in his chest. Sitting there on the living room floor in a crumpled suit and loose tie, holding the hands of two little girls. He was not the businessman Caspian Vance. He was not the CEO of a construction company. He was not the widower afraid to attach himself again. He was just a father. The father of one girl he always had, and the father of another who arrived unexpectedly, but now felt as natural as breathing. "Should we keep playing?" Elara asked. "Let's," Caspian replied, without letting go of her hand. They continued creating adventures for the figures, but now there was something different in the air. A new, stronger connection. Caspian allowed himself to be silly, to make funny voices, to invent absurd situations that made the girls laugh. When the phone rang for the 20th time, Caspian looked at the screen and simply turned off the device. "Daddy, aren't you going to answer?" Aurora asked, surprised. "Not today," Caspian said. "Today I'm going to play with my daughters." Elara smiled at hearing "my girls." For the first time in her life, someone included her, as if she truly belonged somewhere. "We can build an entire city," she suggested, excited. "Great idea," Caspian agreed. "But first, how about a snack? Building cities makes you hungry." In the kitchen, Caspian prepared sandwiches for the three. Aurora was talking about the upcoming construction projects while Elara ate in silence, but with a constant smile on her face. "Daddy," Aurora suddenly said, "you're different today." "Different how?" "More like a dad." Caspian laughed. "I've always been your father, Aurora." "I know, but today you're being a real dad, playing, doing voices, holding our hand." Caspian looked at the two girls. Aurora was right. He was being a real dad, not just a provider, protector, or guardian. He was present, involved, connected. "Did you like Playful Daddy?" he asked. "We liked it," the two replied together. "Then you'll see him more often," Caspian promised. And as they returned to the living room to continue building imaginary worlds with colorful blocks, Caspian knew that something fundamental had also changed within him. He had rediscovered not only how to be a father, but how to be happy being a father. There, sitting on the floor, far from suits and meetings, he had found something he had lost a long time ago: the simple joy of being present in the lives of the people he loved. He wasn't a businessman, he was a father, and for the first time in years, that was more than enough. It was almost bedtime when Elara remembered something important. She was sitting on Aurora's bed, wearing borrowed pajamas that were a little too big, and her hair was still damp from her bath. "I forgot to show you something," she said softly. "What is it?" Aurora asked, curious. Elara got up and went to the small, ragged backpack that Caspian had brought from the makeshift shelter where they found her. It was practically all she owned in the world. She carefully rummaged through the few clothes and pulled out something small and rectangular. "It's a picture of me with Grandma," she said, returning to the bed. Caspian, who was tidying the blankets, came closer. Elara held an old photograph, slightly yellowed and with worn edges from being handled so much. In the image, a gray-haired woman smiled at the camera. She had kind eyes and a delicate face, marked by age, but lit up by an affectionate expression. "She's beautiful," Aurora said. "She looks very kind." "She was the kindest person in the world," Elara replied, gently running her finger over the photo. "She took care of me, made delicious food, told stories." Caspian took the photo to get a better look, and his heart almost stopped. That face was familiar, very familiar. "What was your grandmother's name?" he asked, his voice slightly altered. "Beatrice," Elara replied. "Beatrice Albright." Caspian sat heavily in the chair beside the bed. Beatrice Albright. How had he not noticed this connection before? But of course, Elara had never mentioned her grandmother's full surname. "Daddy?" Aurora asked, noticing the strange expression on his face. Caspian looked at the photo again, then at Elara. The same blue eyes, the same face shape. How had he not noticed this before? "Elara," he said softly, "your grandmother, where did she work?" "Yes, she did. She cleaned offices at night. She would leave home when I was already asleep and come back in the early morning to prepare my breakfast." "Where did she work?" "In a big building downtown. She always said it was an important building with important people." Caspian closed his eyes. Beatrice Albright. How could he have been so blind all these years? "She worked with me," he said finally. "What?" Elara's eyes widened. "Your grandmother worked at my company for many years. She was responsible for cleaning the building." Elara looked at him. "You knew my grandmother?" she asked incredulously. "I did," Caspian replied, his voice choked with emotion. "She was an honorable woman, the most honorable I've ever known." The memory came back in full force. Beatrice Albright, always punctual, always smiling, always respectful. She arrived every day at 9 p.m. and worked until 5 a.m., cleaning every corner of the building to perfection. Caspian remembered how she always greeted everyone politely, how she never complained about overtime, how she treated her work with dignity, even if it was just cleaning for others. "She always talked about a little granddaughter," Caspian continued, his memories crystallizing. "She said you were the light of her life. She spoke about you with great pride. She told me how intelligent you were, how much you loved to learn, how beautiful and well-mannered you were." Elara smiled and her eyes sparkled. "She liked you very much too," she said. "She always commented on how elegant and important the people in the office were." Caspian felt a pang of guilt. Elegant and important. To Beatrice, they were superior, distant, and unattainable people.
She saw them from below, always from below. Once, Elara continued, she came home very happy because an important man had thanked her. She told that story for weeks. Caspian felt a pang in his heart. A simple thank you had been a source of joy for Beatrice for weeks. How could he have been so negligent with the people who worked for him? "Do you remember that man?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. She said he owned everything, but that he was polite, unlike the other bosses. Caspian remembered that day. He had stayed late at the office, working on an important proposal. Beatrice was cleaning the next room when he left. She had held the door for him, smiling shyly. He said, "Thank you, Beatrice," without a second thought. For him, it had been an automatic, insignificant gesture. For her, it had been recognition, humanity, proof that he knew her name and respected her as a person. She got sick in the end,
Elara said sadly. She couldn't work anymore. She stayed home, getting weaker and weaker. I remember when she stopped showing up, Caspian said. I asked the supervisor, but he just said she had resigned for personal reasons. She didn't want anyone to know she was sick. She was afraid of being a bother. Caspian closed his eyes, feeling the weight of his guilt. Beatrice had worked for him for years, always faithful, always dedicated. And when she needed him most, when she was sick and taking care of a small granddaughter alone, he hadn't even bothered to find out what had happened. She died alone in the hospital, Elara continued. I wanted to stay with her, but they said children weren't allowed. She sent me a message saying she loved me and that I was a very special girl. And after that, I was alone at home. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know anyone to ask for help. Caspian looked at Elara, the granddaughter of the most dignified woman he had ever known. A child who had suffered so much because of his own negligence. Elara, he said, his voice choked with emotion. I'm so sorry, truly sorry. Why? Because I should have taken better care of your grandmother. I should have asked about her when she stopped working. I should have found out that she was sick, that you were alone. But you didn't know, Elara said simply. I should have known. It was my responsibility to know. Aurora listened in silence, trying to understand the complexity of the situation. Her father knew Elara's grandmother. They had a connection much longer than they had imagined. Your grandmother talked a lot about you, Caspian continued. She said you were the reason for her life. She worked so hard to give you a good life. And she succeeded, Elara said, smiling through her tears. She taught me to read, to write, to be polite. She told me beautiful stories. She made me feel loved. She loved you very much, and I adored her. Caspian looked at the photo in Elara's hands. Beatrice Albright, with her gentle smile and kind eyes. The woman who cleaned his office every night and who was raising a granddaughter alone. The woman he had seen hundreds of times, but never truly seen. It's strange, he said, how life works. What do you mean? The granddaughter of the most dignified woman I've ever known is now here in my house, being cared for by me. Do you think it was my grandmother who made this happen? Elara asked. Caspian looked at her. The same blue eyes as Beatrice, the same serene dignity, the same ability to find light even in darkness. I think so, he replied honestly. I think your grandmother is protecting you from heaven and sent you to find me. Maybe, or maybe it's life's way of giving me a second chance. A second chance for what? Caspian hesitated. How could he explain to a child that he had been negligent, that he had not taken care of the people who depended on him? To do things right, he said finally. Elara smiled and handed him the photo. Do you want to keep this photo tonight to remind me of my grandmother? Caspian took the photo carefully, as if it were the most precious object in the world. Thank you, Elara. I'll take good care of it. I know you will. Aurora finally spoke. So, Elara was always sort of part of our family because of her grandmother in a way? Yes, Caspian replied. How cool. It's like destiny. Caspian looked again at Beatrice's photo, then at Elara. It was as if life was giving him back what he had received. Beatrice had been ignored, worked for him for years, always invisible, always neglected. Now her granddaughter was there, needing exactly the care he had not given her grandmother. It was a second chance, an opportunity to correct what he had done wrong. To honor the memory of a good woman by caring for what she loved most in the world. Elara, he said softly, your grandmother would be so proud to see how brave and strong you are. Do you really think so? I'm sure. And at that moment, Caspian knew there were no more doubts. Elara wasn't just a child they had helped. She was part of a larger story, a connection that went way back. It was as if Beatrice was asking him through time and space to take care of what she loved most, and he would do it forever. Caspian woke up in the dark, a few minutes before his alarm rang. It was Thursday morning and Elara had been in that house for almost a week that had changed everything, not just the family dynamic and routine, but something fundamental within him. The early morning silence enveloped him as he slowly got up. This was his morning routine, a few minutes alone in the kitchen making coffee, organizing his thoughts for the day. But this time, something pulled him upstairs. He went up silently, as he did every morning, to check if Aurora was okay. Everything was fine, but now there were two girls to look after. Two daughters, he realized, thinking to himself, and the word didn't sound strange to him. Aurora's bedroom door was ajar, as always. Caspian peered through the crack and felt something deep stir in his chest. Aurora and Elara slept embracing in the same bed. Their blonde hair spread across the pillow like sunbeams. Aurora's arms instinctively wrapped around Elara, protectively, an older sister looking after the younger one even as they slept. Elara had an expression of absolute peace on her face, something Caspian had never seen anything like in that first week. It was the face of a child who finally felt safe, protected, and loved. They breathed in the same rhythm, calm, confident. Two sisters who found each other in the most unexpected way and who now couldn't imagine life without each other. Caspian stood there for several minutes, just watching, feeling something grow in his chest. It was more than affection, more than responsibility. It was pure and simple paternal love. Elara was no longer the girl they had helped. She was his daughter in all but name. He went downstairs, that image etched in his memory. In the kitchen, he made coffee with automatic movements, but his mind was completely focused on what he had just seen. For an entire week, he had wondered what the next step would be, what to do with Elara, what would be best for her. But now, seeing the two girls sleeping in each other's arms, the answer seemed crystal clear. Elara was not being helped by them. She had become part of them. She was no longer a child in temporary shelter. She was his daughter in all but paperwork. She already knew every corner of the house as if she had been born there. She knew where the dishes were, which drawer the cutlery was in, which toothbrush was hers in the bathroom. She had her own place at the breakfast table, her preferred side of the bed, her favorite doll among all of Aurora's. She had her own clothes, no longer borrowed from her sister, but specifically bought for her by Caspian during the week. More important than all of that, she had a permanent place in the family's heart. Caspian picked up the phone and dialed a number. He knew the number by heart, even though it was only 6 a.m. Dr. Thorne, it's Caspian Vance. Sorry to call so early, but I need to talk to you about something urgent. Good morning, Caspian. The lawyer's voice sounded sleepy, but attentive. And what can I do for you? I want to adopt a child, a 5-year-old girl. There was a significant pause on the other end of the line. Adoption, Caspian? That's a very serious, very complex decision. Have you already gone through the necessary procedures, social services, psychological evaluations, registration with the competent authorities? She's been with me for a week. It's a special situation. Caspian told the whole story in detail. How he found Elara rummaging through the trash, how she had come to his house, how she adapted perfectly to the family, how he discovered she was Beatrice Albright's granddaughter. I understand the situation, Dr. Thorne said after listening carefully. It's truly special. Well, there is a specific procedure for cases like this. First, it is necessary to immediately regularize the child's situation with social services. Then we will begin the adoption process itself. How long does the whole process take? It depends on several factors: bureaucracy, evaluations, reports, usually between 6 months and a year.
But considering that the child is already perfectly adapted to the home and you prove to have more than sufficient financial resources and emotional stability, it could be significantly faster. What exactly do I need to do? Come to my office this morning as early as possible.
We will file all documents immediately. Every day counts in these processes. And is there any risk of her being taken from me during the process? Minimal. The fact that she is well cared for and clearly happy counts heavily in your favor, but we will do everything to ensure the process happens quickly to avoid any problems. Caspian hung up the phone, feeling a mixture of anxiety and absolute determination. It was the right decision. He knew it with every fiber of his being. 3 hours later, he was sitting in the lawyer's office signing a mountain of papers and answering detailed questions about his financial, emotional, and family situation. The process was complex, full of bureaucracy and legal requirements. It seemed endless. "Is there any real possibility of a challenge?" he asked, concerned. Well, theoretically, any close relative of the child could claim custody, but from what you told me in detail, she has absolutely no one. In fact, no. Her maternal grandmother was the only relative she knew, and she has already passed away. Nothing is known about the father, so there shouldn't be any major problems. I need you to bring Elara here in a few days for a formal interview with a social worker. It's a standard mandatory procedure. Will she be scared by this? Not necessarily, as long as it's well explained beforehand. It's important that she understands that you want to make official something that already perfectly exists. And after that, interview, psychological assessment of everyone involved, home inspection, technical reports, but nothing that could cause problems in your case. Caspian returned home with a folder full of documents and a heart heavy with responsibility, but also with hope. He was officially applying to be Elara's legal father. In a few months, if all went well, she would legally be his daughter. When he arrived, he found the two girls sitting on the living room floor drawing with total concentration. It was incredible how completely Elara had adapted to the home routine in just 1 week. She naturally woke up at the same time as Aurora, had breakfast cheerfully with the family, played while Caspian worked in his home office, and participated in all activities as if she had always been part of them. "Hi, Daddy," Aurora greeted him cheerfully without lifting her eyes from the drawing she was creating. "Hi, girls, what are you doing there?" "We're drawing our family," Aurora replied enthusiastically. "It's for a school project." Caspian moved closer, curious to see better. On the paper, 4 stick figures were carefully drawn holding hands in front of a colorful house. A tall man in a suit, 2 blonde girls, and a tall female figure dressed in a dress. "Who is this figure here?" Caspian asked gently, pointing to the 4th character. "That's Mommy," Aurora answered with absolute naturalness. "My mommy who is in heaven protecting us, and the new mommy Elara will have when you get married again. Every complete family needs a mother," Elara explained, looking at Caspian. Seriously, Aurora drew both mothers, the one who existed and the one who might exist. Caspian felt his eyes well up instantly. Aurora had found a moving way to include both the memory of Elena and the possibility of a different future for Elara. "That's a beautiful and very clever drawing," he managed to say. "Can I put it on the fridge with the other one?" Elara asked. "I hope so." "Of course you can." As she went to the kitchen, Caspian sat on the floor next to Aurora amidst the scattered colored pencils. "Darling, can I talk to you about something very important?" "Of course, Daddy. You always can," she replied, dropping the red pencil. "How would you feel if Elara became your real sister, officially, legally?" Aurora's eyes lit up like stars. "Forever? With papers and everything? Forever? With all the documents and everything? Are you officially adopting her?" Caspian was surprised by Aurora's detailed knowledge of the subject. "How do you know so much about adoption?" "At school, there's a girl in my class who was adopted when she was a baby. She always tells everyone how cool it is to have a parent, a family that specifically chose her. She says it's even more special than normal families. And you would love it if I adopted Elara? I would really love it," Aurora practically shouted with excitement. "So she'll never be alone in the whole world again. And I'll never be without a real sister again. Are you absolutely sure? It would be a very big change for all of us, forever." "Daddy," Aurora said with a seriousness that surprised Caspian, "she's already my sister in my heart. All that's missing is the official document to state that to everyone." Aurora's simplicity and the depth of her answer touched Caspian more than any elaborate discussion could have. For her, Elara was already an integral part of the family. The rest was mere bureaucracy, formality. Elara returned from the kitchen and sat beside them on the rug. Immediately sensing that something important was happening, she asked, "What were you talking about?" With curiosity, Caspian took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. It was time for the most important conversation of his life. "Elara, do you know exactly what adoption is?" "I do. It's when a new family chooses a special child to be their daughter forever." "That's right. And how would you honestly feel if I wanted to adopt you?" Elara froze completely, like a statue. Her blue eyes widened enormously, and she looked from Caspian to Aurora, then back to Caspian, processing the words. "Adopt? Yes, to officially make you my daughter and Aurora's daughter, a real sister." "But why would you do that?" "Because you're already part of our family, Elara. You already live here. You already have your special place at the table. You already sleep in the room with your sister. You're already part of all our conversations and games. The only thing missing is to make it official on paper." "Does that mean I'm going to have a real father?" The question came out in a whisper, laden with all the hope an orphan child could carry in her heart. Caspian knelt in front of her and held her two small, warm hands in his. "It means you already do." Elara looked at him for a long moment that felt like an eternity as she fully processed the words she had just heard. Then, big tears began to silently stream down her face. "Really? Really? Seriously? And I'll be able to stay here forever? Until I grow up?" "Forever, until you grow up. And after that too. And I'll have the same last name as both of you?" "You will, Elara Vance. And you'll be my real father, not just Aurora's dad who lets me stay here. I'll be your father, just as I am Aurora's, with the same love." Elara threw herself into Caspian's arms, crying with pure joy. "I always wanted a daddy," she sobbed against his chest. "I dreamed about it every night." Caspian hugged her with all his might, feeling his own tears stream freely. "And I always wanted two amazing daughters like you." Aurora spontaneously joined the embrace, creating an intimate circle of love, tears of joy, and promises for the future. "Now we're really a complete family," she declared solemnly. They remained like that for several long minutes, hugging, crying, laughing, dreaming of the future that awaited them. "How exactly will this work?" Elara asked when they finally calmed down. "Well, first, we need to talk to some very important people. Social workers, psychologists, judges. They'll ask questions to be absolutely sure that all of us want this from the bottom of our hearts. What if they say no?" "They won't say no," Caspian replied with full conviction. "Not when they see how perfectly you fit into this family." "How long does the whole process take?" "A few months of bureaucracy and interviews, but you'll stay here with us throughout the process. And once everything is complete, you'll receive a brand new birth certificate with my last name. You'll officially be Elara Vance." "Elara Vance," she repeated slowly, smiling. "I really like that name." "And there will be a huge party," Aurora added, excited, "for a new family member." "A party with chocolate cake?" Elara asked, hopeful. "With the biggest chocolate cake in the world," Caspian solemnly promised. That night during dinner, Caspian patiently explained to the girls each step of the adoption process. Aurora asked millions of detailed questions while Elara absorbed everything in respectful silence, still processing the magnitude of the change that was about to happen in her life. "Elara," Caspian said at bedtime, tucking both of them into bed, "are you absolutely sure you want this? Being adopted isn't something that can be easily undone later." "I'm absolutely convinced I do," she replied without the slightest hesitation. "I've always wanted to belong to a real family. You've always belonged here since the first day you arrived. But now it will be official for everyone to know." Now it will be official. When the girls finally fell asleep in each other's arms, Caspian remained in the room for a while, watching in the dark. A few hours later, he had made the most important decision of his life since marrying Elena. He was going to officially adopt Elara. He was going to legally make her his daughter. She was already part of the house. She was already part of his life. She was already part of the family in a way that went far beyond papers and legal documents. All that remained was the paperwork. And soon, very soon, even that would be resolved once and for all. Caspian smiled in the dark, imagining the day Elara would receive her new birth certificate, the day she would officially become Elara Vance, the day an orphaned girl would finally have a real family to call her own, and a family that was very lucky to find her, the exact person needed to complete the project. The day had arrived. After 8 months of paperwork, interviews, social services visits, and court appearances, the day of the final decision finally came. Caspian woke up early, even before his alarm clock rang. Beside him in bed were Aurora and Elara. They were sleeping soundly. Throughout the adoption process, the two always slept together in their father's bed whenever they were nervous or anxious, and this had been one of those nights. He watched the two girls in silence that morning. Elara was no longer the scared, hungry child they had found rummaging through trash. Her blonde hair gleamed with health, her pink skin was rosy, and most importantly, there was a constant light in her blue eyes, the light of someone who felt loved and protected. "Daddy," Elara whispered, slowly opening her eyes. "Is it time?" "Not yet, dear. We still have a few hours." "I couldn't sleep well," she replied. "I was nervous." "It's normal to be nervous. It's a very important day." "What if something goes wrong?" Caspian sat on the bed and stroked her hair. "Nothing will go wrong, Elara. Nothing." Aurora woke up stretching. "Today, Elara becomes a Vance forever!" she shouted, jumping out of bed. "It's true!" 3 hours later, they were at the courthouse, waiting to be called. Elara wore her prettiest dress, light blue like her eyes, and held a folder with all the drawings she had made during the months of waiting. Caspian was in a suit and tie, but inside, his heart was racing. "The Vance family," an official shouted. "That's us," Aurora excitedly replied. In the judge's chambers, everything was simpler than Caspian had imagined. The judge, a gray-haired man with kind eyes, asked Elara a few final questions. "Are you sure you wish to be adopted by Mr. Caspian Vance?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And do you understand that this means he will be your father forever?" "I understand, and I truly want that." "Why?" "Because he takes care of me, protects me, tells me stories, and..." She hesitated, then continued in a firm voice, "and because I feel in my heart that he is my true father." The judge smiled. "Very well. I hereby declare, by means of this document, that the adoption is officially finalized. Elara Albright is now Elara Vance." Aurora shouted with joy. Caspian felt his eyes fill with tears. Elara stood still for a moment as if she couldn't believe it. "It's done?" she asked. "Am I a Vance now?" "You are a Vance now," the judge confirmed, handing her a new certificate. "Congratulations to the Vance family." On the way back home, Aurora wouldn't stop talking. "Now we're real sisters," she shouted, vying for having the same last name and everything. Elara held the certificate as if it were gold, reading and rereading her new name, Elara Vance. "Daddy," she said softly, "can I call you Daddy now?" "You always could, dear, but now it's official." "Daddy," she repeated, "my daddy." At home, Caspian had prepared a little surprise. In the living room, there was a simple chocolate cake with colorful candles and a banner that read, "Welcome to the family, Elara Vance." "How lovely!" exclaimed Elara, clapping her hands. "Now you can make a new drawing," Aurora suggested to celebrate. "Good idea, let's do it together." The two ran to get paper and colored pencils. Caspian watched them, smiling. It was incredible how they had become true sisters in every sense of the word. An hour later, they returned with a new drawing. "Look, Daddy!" It was similar to the first drawing they made together, but now there were 3 figures, a tall man in the middle, a girl on each side, all holding hands. Below, in carefully written letters, it said, "Now we are a family." Where should we put it? Elara asked. On the living room wall, Caspian suggested. With the others. They went to the living room, where there was already a small gallery on the wall with the girls' drawings. The first drawing, Best Friends Forever, was framed in the center. Around it, other drawings told the family story. The house with 3 people, the castles they built together, their imaginary adventures. Caspian placed the new drawing next to the first, creating a visual sequence of their journey. It's perfect, Aurora said. It's our story, Elara observed, all detailed. That evening during dinner, Caspian gave a brief speech. I want you two to know that this is one of the most important days of my life. Not only because the adoption was finalized, but also because our family is officially complete. Can I give a speech too? Elara asked. Of course. She stood up, serious and solemn. I want to thank you for choosing me, for giving me a home, a sister, a father, for making me feel like I have a place in the world. Caspian felt his eyes well up again. Thank you for choosing us too, Elara. And now, Aurora added dramatically, let's eat cake. The days that followed were about adapting to the new reality. Elara practiced signing her new name, Elara Vance. Aurora introduced her to everyone as my real sister. Caspian took care of the last bureaucratic details of the adoption. But it was on a Saturday afternoon, 2 weeks later, that the moment Caspian would never forget happened. He was in the living room reading some work documents when he felt a presence beside him. Elara was there, just watching him. What is it, dear? Can I sit with you? Of course. She settled on the couch next to him. He sat in silence for a moment. Caspian noticed there was something different in her eyes, a deep emotion, as if she was gathering courage to say something important. Daddy, she began softly. Yes, my love. You know, she hesitated, then continued, her voice choked with emotion. I always wanted a father. Caspian put down the papers and looked at her. Always, always, ever since I was little, I saw other children with their fathers, and I imagined what it would be like to have one. What it would be like to have someone to protect me, to tell me stories that made me feel safe. And what did you imagine it would be like? I dreamed my father would be kind, that he would take care of me, that he would make me laugh, that he would teach me important things in life. Caspian felt something stir deep in his chest. Elara. Now, Elara moved closer and rested her head delicately on his chest, like a little bird seeking shelter. Now I have one. The words were simple, but so full of meaning that Caspian felt as if his heart would explode with emotion. He hugged her with all his strength, perhaps feeling his own tears stream down his face. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for letting me be your father. Thank you for wanting to be. They stayed like that for a long time, embracing on the living room sofa. Father and daughter, finally united not just by legal documents, but by a love that grew naturally, day after day. When they finally separated, Caspian looked around the room. On the wall, the small gallery of drawings told their entire story. It started with Best Friends Forever, went through drawings of castles and adventures, and ended with Now We Are a Family. There was no luxury in those drawings, no exaggeration or sophistication. They were just childish scribbles made with cheap colored pencils. But they told the most beautiful story Caspian knew. The story of how 3 lonely people had found each other and formed a family. Daddy, Elara said, following his gaze, do you think my grandmother can see us from heaven? I think so. Do you think she's happy? Caspian thought of Beatrice Albright, the dignified woman who raised Elara with so much love. He thought of how proud she would be to see her granddaughter now, loved, protected, part of a real family. I think she's very happy, replied, and very proud of you, and of our family. and of our family. Aurora appeared in the room at that instant, returning from playing in the garden. What are you talking about? About our family? Our family is the best in the world, Aurora declared, throwing herself onto the sofa between them. Caspian looked at the two girls, one on each side of him. Aurora, his biological daughter, who found in her adopted sister the companionship she had always desired. Elara, his daughter by heart, who brought a new joy and a different perspective on what truly mattered in life into the home. Yes, he agreed, the best in the world. That night when he went to put the girls to bed, Caspian stopped once more at the bedroom door. Aurora and Elara were talking softly in bed, planning the next day's games.
Elara, Aurora said, do you remember when you were just my friend? I do. It feels like a long time ago. Now you're my sister forever. Forever, even when we get old. Even when we get old and have kids, and our kids will be cousins. They will, and we'll tell them how we met. Caspian smiled in the darkness. The two were already planning a future decades away, always including each other. Later, alone in the living room, he looked again at the drawings on the wall. It was a simple gallery without expensive frames or sophisticated arrangements, but it told a story of pure love, of a family born from essence, of how the best things in life don't cost money. The first drawing, two girls holding hands, had been the beginning of everything. The last three figures hugging were the perfect conclusion. In between, all the other drawings showed the journey. Games, adventures, moments of discovery and growth. It was the visual documentation of how a friendship turned into sibling love, and how a lonely man rediscovered the joy of being a father. Caspian took out his phone and took a picture of the entire wall. He wanted to save that moment, that story told in children's drawings, because in those simple scribbles was proof that the most beautiful families are not born. They are built day after day, drawing after drawing, hug after hug. Without luxury, without exaggeration, just love. And love, Caspian had learned, was more than enough to build a perfect family.